Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pod TV's #1 advocate show, Timeshare Solution or Surrender, with Irene Parker, where we take a look at some of the deceptive acts committed by timeshares, some of their ridiculous lending practices that the law permits them to do, and we are out to provide the solutions to help people so that they don't have to live a lifetime nightmare owning a timeshare they really didn't intend to get. Everyone, help me welcome Irene Parker this October 14th, our #1 34 episode. Hi, Irene.
Hi, it's really nice to be back. Thank you so much. I'm really excited about today's show. We're always happy to have people who have worked in the industry. And I would like, though, first off, to introduce our first guest, Robert, who is a Florida resident. And Robert has, hi, Robert.
Hey.
So Robert is one of our probably most educated volunteers we have. He's working on his PhD in finance right now. He has an undergraduate degree in mathematics, geophysics, and engineering. So thank you for being with us today. And rather than disputing a timeshare, more or less, he basically has taken an interest in the industry. So that is why I invited Michelle, who has been on our show before. Robert is like me, a Florida resident. We both survived the hurricane unscathed. And then we have Michelle is in Virginia, and she's a former timeshare sales agent, and she's committed to helping people before they get into a timeshare presentation. And so I like to start with what happened since last week. So first of all, last week we had Karen Levins, who led efforts with Carriage Ridge and Carriage Hills in Ontario, Canada. They were Wyndham timeshare resorts that were they were sold, so they're no longer timeshare. And the deliberate suppression of a secondary market where they would not let an owner out for any reason. And so I received a private message from one of the board members after the show that said the three amigos, Karen being one of the three amigos, and Team Awesome, that was about a dozen people that lobbied for Ontario consumer protection to force the sale of these resorts. And so next week we're going to revisit this. I invited the board member to be on the show, and his response was, "You swallowed it." And, it's like childish. So we're going to have someone from Carriage on one of the former owners to say just the heartache that so many people went through, and the incompetency of HOA boards that will not allow an exit under any circumstances. So I like to give a plug for Port Elsewhere in Osage Beach, Missouri, that when I said I moved to Florida, I grew up in St. Louis, I loved Branson. I don't want to vacation in Branson anymore, except I was there last week. And they just sent me a piece of paper and I signed it, and I have nothing but good memories. Unlike Great Eastern, that Michelle is familiar with, Vacation Village, Club Exploria, it's just a major battle to try to be released. So I have what I wanted to start with was a press release that Wyndham released. Wyndham was awarded $16 million in a lawsuit against Pandora Marketing, an exit company in California, and other named defendants. And the comment from Wyndham is that this judgment sends a strong message The companies cannot falsely advertise and mislead customers without facing serious consequences. Okay, so we have Megan. Now we have, last week I talked about Megan. We had another Megan call. So Megan one that we mentioned last week, she was pregnant with her third child, and the Wyndham sales agent told her, it's okay if your husband is deployed in a combat zone and you can't use your timeshare because you can rent it out to cover the cost of the program. We've had on the show twice Tom, who retired 23 years with the Baltimore Police Department, also living up in on the east coast of Florida, where he was told to buy more points to rent to cover costs. The Wyndham sales agent provided him with a name of someone that could help him do that. It worked. And then he received a cease and desist letter accusing him of commercial activity. The other, and then we also have, now that article about the $16 million judgment was Yahoo Finance. Yahoo Finance a few years ago published this article that said why hedge funds like timeshare stocks, because they're evil. They compared it to Philip Morris, where you could make a lot of money on that stock as they slowly killed their customers. And the reporter said, today we look at another set of evil companies that use high pressure tactics to trick consumers into signing complex long-term contracts. Check out this Reddit post. Now, Megan, too, that reached out just 2 days ago, she's a major in the Army. And she's in default with Westgate that she bought 10 years ago. The first step is a clear, concise report. So I sort of assigned her homework, and she's working on that report of all the ways that she's experienced deception. So, Robert, let's start with you. And what prompted your interest in timeshare? What have you learned, and where are we going from here?
So it started when I was approached to go to a sales presentation. I don't even know if they offered me anything. I know with Hilton, I paid $250 for a week, which it's not great, but I was like, oh, cool, let's see what this timeshare stuff is about. And with Wyndham, as soon as the guy started talking, it was like it was very snake oil sales, and I got that vibe pretty quick. And especially when I'm studying finance, especially within real estate, he keeps talking about all these great things, and I kept shooting him down. He's like, oh, you get a deed that's in your name, and I'm like, oh, great. So I'm like legally stuck with this property and the property tax. And he just, every time he kept saying something, I kept shooting it down. I was like, man, this really just doesn't seem like the good deal he's making it out to be. And then when I saw the numbers, I didn't even need a calculator. I'm like, okay, well, your interest rate is less than 1% away from being illegal in this state. And I just kept going through everything. And then, he gets up and he leaves. And somebody else comes to give me a good high pressure sales pitch. He's like, is this affordable? And I'm looking at him like, yeah, $300 a month. But you know what else I can do with $300 a month? And I had some pretty graphic examples for him. Such as I can take a hammer for $5 and smash my fingers. That doesn't, it's affordable. That doesn't mean it's going to be enjoyable. So I kept going through, and eventually I was like, you know what? Let's try the discovery package and see how we like it. And the best part about the discovery package, even though it is in its own right kind of a ripoff, every time I have to speak with somebody from marketing, I get some very interesting tidbits. For example, it says in your contract you have to go to a sales presentation your first visit, but on my second and third, they were being quite fraudulent. They were telling me, oh, well, we got bought out by RCI, so you have to come to a new one. And they kept saying your contract was changed. And it wasn't until recently I started
Wait a minute. Let me reset that. Wyndham bought Travel and Leisure.
Yes.
Wyndham also bought RCI, but then they are changing the name to Travel and Leisure. So it's kind of reverse. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't even know that, but I didn't need to know that the individual representing Wyndham was perhaps not being honest with me. Because A, it says in the contract they can't change anything without sending you a certified letter. He's like, oh, we sent you an email, and I'm looking through my email. I'm like, no, you didn't. And an email doesn't cut it if you look at page 8 of my contract. And I think that's when he knew something was up. That I'm a little more well versed than he was expecting, which I won't get into the details, but it caused quite a commotion, and I did have to leave the property. But when I started seeing what was going on, I was like, this isn't an isolated incident. The same thing happened to me last time. This is happening now. So now I'm kind of excited to keep using these points and go to these sales presentations with my notes from the lawsuits that they have lost. And, a lot of their claims that they made that were disproven, and see if they're still making those claims. And if they are, politely tell the salesperson, I don't think you're being honest.
Well, and there's actually, I have followed since 2019, 12 Wyndham lawsuits.
Yep.
And from Archambault versus Wyndham in 2019, and I believe this would have been discovered during discovery for them to be able to say this, Wyndham developed ways to entice owners to buy more points. Wyndham created the, put in quotes, rental pitch, and trained its sales agents to use the rental pitch as a tactic to buy more points. And then also in Allen versus Wyndham in 2019, and 2019 is when Jason Gamble, who is the head of ARDA, the Timeshare Industry Lobby, the American Resort Development Association, at the time he was senior VP of legal at Wyndham. In discovery, they found sales agents with 30, 40, one as high as 57 complaints against them, and they were not terminated. So Michelle and I go way back, where Michelle filed a lawsuit. When I read her lawsuit, and she named the in-house director of sales, whose caller ID was a pizza restaurant. And you... And then the person he worked with, she's been arrested in the past for identity theft and forgery. And they all went to Blue Green after it got too hot. And you would actually call the caller ID would say the pizza restaurant, and you would call it. No, there's no one here by that name.
It was downstairs from our office.
Yeah. So Michelle, after listening to Robert and listening to me and how long did you work in the industry? If you can share, if you're at liberty to share who you worked for or what you learned. And I know that you went through some training, and what really set me through the roof, and then I'll step back, is the recorded closing. Because in 2016 and 2017, just the state of Arizona received over 1,000 timeshare complaints from Diamond Resorts. I got a call from their PR firm, Irene, in 2017. We're going to go beyond the assurance of discontinuance. We're going to record the closing session. I said, that's going to be used as an entrapment. And with the sales manager we're talking about, he would actually make them rehearse. Why are you buying this product? And to be funny, the husband answered, because we can use our maintenance fees to pay, we can use our points to pay for our maintenance fees. And he put his head in his hand and shook it. Everybody laughed and recited like puppets. We're buying more points because we want to vacation more and spend more time with our family. And then fortunately, they were able to resolve their disputes. So Michelle, you take us from there, what you've learned, how long you've worked in the industry, and if you could tell us where you worked.
Yeah, I've spent more than a decade in timeshare working for most of the big brand names. Great Eastern Resorts. From there, like I went to Hilton Head and I did some work for smaller companies like Spinnaker and Palmera. And then from there, I made my way to Hilton, which at that time was Diamond. I've also went through trainings at Blue Green and Wyndham as well, and Hilton Grand Vacations. So, and then also another company called Arivia that's also another marketing trap that's tied into
Arivia bought Red Week, right?
They bought SOR Technology and What Makes People Happy Vacations. It used to be International Cruise and Excursion, and if you know anything about ICE Rewards, you know that that program was horrible. It failed, and so right around the beginning of COVID, they bought SOR Technology, which is like your global vacation memberships and things like that. Those travel clubs, and they merged in all, and that's when it became Arivia. And so, the goal is to market for timeshare. And so they run these vacation clubs, and the goal is just to keep people moving in places like Mexico, where there's Vedanta, Vegas, all these, beaches and stuff like that. But I noticed when I was, in management, I was well on my way into upper leadership. And, I went on the travel team for Diamond, which is now HGV. And I really noticed some things that made me uncomfortable. And
The travel team is going from
state
dinner
to
to dinner.
Yeah, state to state, international waters, on cruises, wherever they can basically get you to, have a presentation. And the more points or the more ownership you have, the higher your loyalty levels. So those are the people that, they're whining and dining more on these special events. I mean, I've been to NFL games, I've been on cruises to the Caribbean, I've been all over the place selling timeshare. And once I got into that road show in the in-house department, that's when I noticed the big money in the game of it. You're marketed by discount stays and freebies as a non-owner to get your feet wet. You make your original purchase. Most people who sell timeshare on the front line, new members, they have no idea who the ARDA is. They don't know anything other than they're just supposed to be doing good for families and helping them put a plan in place. But what they don't know is within, 90 days, typically, before you can even really access or use your timeshare, you're going to get shuffled to the owner's department, and they're going to try their first attempt at upgrading you. And then just about every time you use it, they're going to keep trying to get you to upgrade it. Plus, you've got now credit cards with vacation memberships. You've got, as example, Westgate Cruise and Travel with Westgate, that's part of Arivia. It's all marketing points, upgrades, money, being shuffled into the ARDA through voluntary contributions that you're never made aware of. And I watched elderly abuse. I watched our military being abused. I noticed that these things were happening, and then they wanted me to tell these lies, promising me that a force field would be built around me. And I realized that force field was basically the contract. The consumer stands no chance against that contract that's ironclad once you're past your rescission. And so when they started wanting me to lie and become untruthful about the things that the program would or wouldn't do to make a sale within their culture, which is by any means necessary, I blew the whistle, and I was retaliated upon. And I mean, I lost everything. And so, they did try to settle with me, basically hush money. And it was laughable. It wasn't enough for me to say, no, you're not going to hurt my people, military families. I come from a huge military background in my family, and I'm just not okay with it. I believe that there's absolutely zero reason for an active duty military person to be marketed or sold a timeshare. It's just not flexible enough for them.
And Robert, you're a veteran, are you not?
Yeah, I proudly served for 10 years. Yes.
And what branch of the military?
I started out in the Marine Corps, and then I finished my time in the Army.
Well, thank you for your service. And when you attended you bought the trial package with Wyndham, have you been to a subsequent meeting after that?
Yes.
And that was when they tried to they tried to upsell you. What did you learn? And because I remember, Michelle, you said that what really the recorded closing that sends me through the roof is that it's used as an entrapment. Don't say anything about being able to rent, refinance, or resell, because I have contacts outside of this organization to do that. So you don't say anything on the recording because you've just become best friends with your sales agent. And then when you file your complaint, they say, if this was important to you, you should have said something on the recorded closing.
but they stop the recording when they call the manager. I've been into several of those.
Yes.
Where my reps were called into that closing, or I was called into that closing as a manager or a rep, and the QA, quality assurance, or the validator turns off the camera while you're speaking to them, or they'll have you completely remove them from the office to clear up whatever it is, so that when you come back to the recorded closing, it's clean. When I went on my cruise to Bermuda, the quality assurance manager was on that cruise. She now works for Hilton Grand Vacations, as in the same context. She was in my reports to the attorney general, in the court case, everything. She made a comment. Her speech to us on the opening morning of the cruise was, "I don't care what you tell them. You know our script. Get it around us." And that's that. Go sell some stuff.
And the goal is to sell like 15,000 on the front line, and then upsell hopefully before they've had a chance to use the points. So what we're lobbying for is the oral representation clause should be disclosed at or prior to the sales session.
They'll figure out a way around that. I just don't think that that's even going to be strong enough to protect the consumer.
It would help instead of being buried in 80 pages of fine print. Also, you can't listen to that recorded closing without a subpoena. Once in a while, people may, but and then if you want to listen to it, you have to have a subpoena. And to have a subpoena, you have to file an arbitration case, which is a kangaroo court. So, Robert, what happened when you went back? Did you go to that first meeting after buying the trial product? Was that the first time you used it to go to an orientation?
Yes, and that would have been in Edisto Beach, South Carolina.
And what happened there?
It was one of those. It was very bizarre. But I let him know. I was told 60 minutes. My timer's on. I don't know. Maybe he was unprepared, but I was very stern with no, and no. I at the very beginning, I wasn't at all impressed with the accommodations. I'm like, there's no way I'd spend any money on this, even on Priceline. So, it was kind of high pressure. 3 people, including the salesperson, kind of surrounded me, and they were, "Oh, how does this look? How does this look?" And you can't really make a determination off one page. Some people do. But whenever I said, let's look at the whole contract and look at the terms and conditions, I guess that's when they kind of let me go, so to speak.
Can you remember any of the specific things in the contract that you called them out on?
Yeah, at the bottom of page 8, it says that I will not hold Wyndham. I agree not to hold Wyndham liable for any misrepresentations made by sales representatives.
Well, yeah. So which begs the question, why would you even attend if you can't believe a word that's been said? Now, there are many people.
Can I say something there now?
Sure.
If you go to Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, chances are they're 1099 contractors. I could see that, because really they're on their own. But when you work at Wyndham, you work for Wyndham, you're a W-2 employee for Wyndham, you are representing that company. You have been trained by that company. Your manager works for that company, and you're getting paid by that company. So you should be able to hold them 100% responsible for what they're telling you to get you into these contracts. So that's harmful to consumers.
Now, what we want to do is we want to encourage people. Our next phase in TARDA, our nonprofit, was founded in 2019, Timeshare and Resort Developer Accountability, is we want more recordings. We have about 20 recordings right now. And a prior guest on our show just last night sent me a recording. And this is just ridiculous what this sales agent did. And so she sent 4 different recordings. I've only listened to the first 5 minutes of the first one and went, oh my gosh. So Kim, can you play that 5 minutes for us so we can hear a real life example?
We don't have many units left to sell. It's going to be first come, first serve, whoever gets it. Okay. By the end of this evening, we have to sell all the units because tomorrow we are starting our new program. We cannot start the new program until we sell these. Because we signed a contract with the real estate division that we have to sell all of them by today. And we don't have many units left. Tomorrow when we come back to work, we are starting a new package, and that will be like a 10 years rental agreement. Today what we are offering you is ownership. You own it for the rest of your life. Now at the end of my presentation, I'm definitely going to ask you all to buy something. It's just my job. But I'm not going to force you. I'm not going to push you to buy anything. I'm just going to show you something which changed my life, and this will definitely change your lives. Okay? Now basically our program is so good, it sells itself. We don't need to force anyone to buy this. It's a very good program. And secondly, we're all on a very high salary. It's not a commission job. So we get paid anyway. Now you'll have to make a decision today itself. It's only a one-time offer because it is a closeout. We cannot hold the prices for anyone because we have to sell everything.
Yeah, tomorrow the new program starts.
So do ask me lots of questions. This is very different. And I do have a request. Can you please keep an open mind?
Yeah, sure.
You never know. Opportunities don't come every day.
Yeah, I agree.
And I learned from my father, he always said, when you get an opportunity, just take it.
Yeah.
And I've been doing that all my life, and I've been very successful with it. Did you want anything to eat more? Anything else?
No, later on. I think I will have another sandwich. I really like it, but
Yeah,
later
they're very
on.
nice.
Yeah. I'm also so hungry, so maybe it's just because I was
Which
hungry.
one did you take? The chicken?
The turkey. Yes.
I'm just going to start with this.
That chicken
So
sandwich
that's
is
the
going
name
to
of my
cost
company, Vacation Village. And the name of the resort is called the Grandview.
Grandview.
Yes. Now, as a company, we have 50 resorts of our own. Like, we own all of them.
I think that's
These
off
are
here.
our
We can
sister
turn it
properties,
off.
meaning we started this company with one resort.
Yes. So you hear all the noise in the background, Michelle? Did you call those buffers?
Yeah, they're buffers to keep everything from coming through clearly through, cubicle walls and between tables recordings. But that sales rep is following her process to a T. That is Vacation Village's sales process. She hit them with the found. I've felt it. It changed my life. It can change yours. She got them, she's getting them with she's trying to earn trust, though I'm salary, not commission. She's asking them to keep an open mind. And then she went into what I call the snap pitch. And so I used to write the word snap, and I would draw a line like a divide between NAP and S. And I would ask folks, what do you think the difference is between a corporate level executive and you? And they'd say, well, I don't know. And I'd say, well, they know how to immediately identify a deal, and they don't nap on the money. And I would draw $sign on the S. So that's exactly what she did. This is a deal. It's creating urgency. You're only going to get this deal today. I mean, I think it's kind of comical that we got to do it all by the end of the day. I mean, that would have been red flag for me. But there are a lot of folks who want to capture that deal. Remember, when Vacation Village first started selling Great Eastern Resorts or whatnot, it was pre-construction. So you better get it before all the good units are gone. And so they're still following 60-something years later with the same process.
Well, Great Eastern, and if you go to Red Week, you can type in Grandview Red Week resales, and they'll be there for $1.
Or
and
free.
So, it's one thing to create urgency, but to outright lie and say, starting tomorrow, there's a 10-year rental agreement, and you won't be an owner anymore.
Yep.
That is, now Great Eastern doesn't have anything to do with Vacation Village, does it?
Yeah. So they're
It
all.
does?
Well, maybe today it might be different, but I know that Massanutten, Grandview, all of those resorts were sister properties, and you could do the internal exchange. So it's called the Vacation Village Network, which should be Great Eastern Resorts Corporation. Girk.
Right.
I thought they were two separate.
No, they're the same.
Yeah, because neither of them have a responsible exit. If you have very, very severe medical problems, you might be able, you might be able to, we've had some people get released and they charge $1,500 to
in the
be
old days,
released.
if you use the word litigate in a complaint, they would let you out. But now they've gotten attorneys and they've grown, and now it's harder for them to get you to, be let out of your contract. And so that's why you find them on the bulletin board at the Massanutten Villas for $500 because people want out. It no longer works. That lifelong thing just doesn't work anymore.
Now, and I read, I'm on the Facebook posts. There's a Wyndham Network or something where there's 28,000 members, and the Blue Green, there's addicts where they go on and on and on that we are just a bunch of dummies that don't know how to use the timeshare, and it's a really, really great program. I do feel there are people that have sold it honestly. I can't, and if we're going to pick who is, I used to say Hilton, Marriott, and Disney, but we've dropped Hilton because this acquisition of Hilton, of Blue, Green, and Diamond is just a new tool in the toolbox. We had someone say that if you buy a deed on resale, you have to pay Hilton $25,000, which is a complete lie. Why do I have to pay that? Because we don't want anyone beating the system. And
so when you sell points, basically if you've bought them resale, you can use them to book accommodations, but those points are never going to be qualified in your portfolio towards your loyalty or anything else like that. And so, if you're buying the points on resale to use them, that's one thing. But if you're looking for some kind of loyalty perk that's going to get you more of a return rate when you decide to cash them in and pay your maintenance fees, which is absurd. I mean, pennies on the dollar. It makes absolutely no sense. You're not going to see that loyalty get bumped up. So,
but also you can't join the club if you buy on resale, and that's the internal booking system. And so we had someone that was told, we're doing away with deeds. So you should buy U.S. collection points, which are the old diamond points that they're still reselling.
Yeah, now it's a certificate of trust that you're still buying into the U.S. trust collection. I've seen that with my own eyes.
And then we had someone else complain that they had points and they were told you have to buy deeds.
Yep.
And so they're selling them Hilton's deed.
That's right. And so that's what the in-house department is there for. So if I get someone who has bought a deed, my manager is going to tell me, or I, as the manager, is going to tell my rep, here is your angle. You're going to go and upgrade them for points into loyalty, or you're going to sell them more time in the deed. If I get someone who bought points, guess what? They don't have a deed. It's the same thing with the Hawaii collection and the U.S. collection.
I call it the ping pong upsell.
That's it. And so that's how they make their money. You don't need it. There's no need for anybody to really upgrade unless it's to use it more. But they come up with all these fictional reasons verbally to get you to spend more money to buy more on the promise that it's going to give you the sun, the moon, and the stars. And when you finally get access to it, you got nothing.
And the common ploy is to blame the prior agent for a mistake.
Oh, they were new. They didn't know what they sold you. You bought a leisure package. You need this to be able to reach your goals. But here's what I can do for you. I'm gonna get you to fill this out, okay? I want you to put on this piece of paper everything that rep told you and why you were buying it, and then I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna fax it over to corporate, and I'm gonna see if maybe, just maybe, they'll honor your price per point that you had that day, because now it's $8.20 a point. But now I'm gonna see if maybe they'll honor that $2 $7.67. That way you can buy the right points. You know what they do with that piece of paper?
Yeah.
Right in the trash.
Now, Robert, you filed a complaint with against Wyndham.
Yes.
With and who did you file with, and what were your allegations in that complaint?
So I filed with the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, the Florida State Attorney General's office, and FINRA, which is who licenses a lot of financial professionals. And what I did was, when the individual lied and said, Wyndham has been bought out, your contract has been changed. Of course, no, that's not how that works. I took my evidence and I sent it to all the available government entities. So I'm looking at the email chain from Wyndham's Consumer Affairs Division, and they received my complaint September 3rd. And the individual in question decided to call me on last Wednesday during Hurricane Milton, and even via text message admitted, "Oh, we're dealing with Hurricane Milton. Call me when you can." But instead, he immediately closed out the case with the Florida Attorney General's office. Like, "Oh, couldn't get a hold of him." I'm like, "Oh,
Well,
okay."
and do you remember Norma, Kim? Norma owes Wyndham $4,300 a month. Her husband's been a pastor for 53 years. And I hear this over and over again. We attempted to reach you and you did not respond. Nobody answers the phone if it's unrecognized number. And they said, you must reply to this email because it has your complaint number in it. 3 times she responded to it. The third time she stayed on the phone with them to make sure it was received. And 30 minutes later, she received the boilerplate, we've closed your case because we can't reach you. And one of them was addressed to a different owner, not her.
I
So,
filed to the FTC, to the Attorney General. I mean, I've filed everywhere you possibly can as a whistleblower, and I get zero response.
well, you filed with the Virginia Attorney General.
I did that, but I had them responding there for a little while, calling me a treasure chest, and then that just fizzled and died. Never heard anything more about them either. So 2 years later, I finally sent them a request to send me all my materials back, because I sent them emails and I was getting no response. They are aware. They allow it to persist because legally, you as a consumer can't do anything to them. And these attorney generals in their states where they're a timeshare, they are getting a cut of that in taxes and revenue. And so, I mean, it's dirty, it's corrupt.
And campaign contributions.
And lobbyists and everything else.
Now, there are pro-consumer attorney generals and there are pro-industry attorney generals. Well, actually, the Arizona Attorney General I had a complaint in with the Arizona Attorney General, and they are the reason that the transitions program that used to cost $1,000 and now is 1.5 years of maintenance fees. So for a high level owner, that's $15,000. But if you bought in Arizona, or if you are an Arizona resident that bought anywhere, the exit fee is $250, not $1,000.
But they did let Diamond and Mike Flasky off with a slap on the wrist and let them offer a transparency statement that was all fluff and butter too.
Well, and I attended the hearing, the Senate hearing. So that bill that would have allowed the timeshare member 24 hours before signing a contract it passed the House 100%. But when it got in the Senate, the ARDA lobbyists got up and said, it's not the state's responsibility to protect people that didn't take the time to understand the product.
You need more than 24 hours to understand a timeshare contract because it's going to take you that long to find an attorney that's going to be willing to sit down with you and go over it with you.
Well, here's the thing. They had an attorney. They'll have an attorney there. They'll claim they went over it with you in all of 3 minutes after they dried you out for 4 hours, brainwashing you and beating you to death and holding you hostage, dehydrating you, starving you. So yeah, they do go over it with you. They go, do you agree to this? Do you agree to that? I asked questions. Where's the, you said that I can exit this at any time I want. Where is that at in the contract? And of course, I was very drunk at the time, excessively drunk at the time, and have witness for it. But, they pointed it to me on the pages of the contract right here, Miss Callahan. The exit clause is right here. I don't have a recording of it. I wish I would have made sure I recorded because, like I said, I record everything. I was really drunk that morning, and extreme because my sister and I had flown in to Chicago for our weekend away. It was 1 year from my husband's death. And St. Patrick's Day weekend. So it was just a combination of mishaps. I didn't even know I was, when I bought the deal for the weekend, I didn't even know it was a timeshare sale that I had to go. But we were told we couldn't even get a room unless we showed, no, wait, they did give us a room, but they said we wouldn't be able to keep the room if we didn't show up. So, charge me more, but my God, don't kick me out in the middle of the streets in the snow. But their tactics are horrible. I'm making it my goal to record anything I do with them. My goal is to record a lot of things that I do with people. But them in particular, I do have a dear, cute young couple that's moving in with me. Their home flooded out recently, and during the transition, they're going to stay with me. And they get invited to go on timeshares all the time. They got it down to a science. They can't afford to buy any of them at all. They're very young. They own a home and they can barely make those payments. They're working hard, but they go on these all the time. But they got it down to such a system. They have the timeshares giving them airfare to go to places now. So they really worked the timeshare into their benefit. Not a dime comes out of their pocket. Not a dime.
The last
that's being paid for
by people, right, or the people who own them. But in the end of the day, I can respect somebody who can flip it on them, kind of like Mr. I would rather take a hammer and smash my fingers with it, which. When I was listening to that recording, I'm going, God, slam my fingers, please. I can't listen to this another minute.
Well, and if somebody's going to attend just to get the free gift, at least ask them to help us by recording it if they're in a state where it's legal.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to
North Carolina, that they're just not racking up more fees for the people that are
and I'm going to give them the tools to do it. I'm not even going to let them use their own phones or anything. I will provide the tools for them to use, and I'm going to see if I can recruit some others who tend to get invited a lot. I don't think I'll ever get invited again, but and they don't really want me to. You know what? I will say this: I will have fun this time, and I won't be drunk. They do get angry if you say no. Like there's this, well, didn't you get a room? Well, no, actually I paid for it. No, I'm not interested. I'm not interested. I can't afford to own any property right now. My husband just passed away. I can't read due to PTSD from watching him die. All of these things were coming out of my mouth, and that never stopped them. They held us
because their commission,
for 4 hours. We were on a drunk hungover by then, dehydrated to the end. In fact, when we left, we asked several times for a bottle of water. Now that I think about it, it might have been tainted, so it's a good thing we didn't get it. But I really, the first thing we did was dove in and got ourselves bottles of water to drink because we were so dehydrated and so starved because we left at 5:00 that morning, flew to Chicago from North Carolina. So we were starving. We even asked, do you have some snacks? I even said, do you have a vending machine here? I'm starving. We just want to go. Can we go to lunch and come back and finish this? It has been an hour and a half. Do we get to keep the room? I asked a lot of those questions, but being off of a drunk and hungover and spinning out, they said, well, we'll buy it back. And that's what I want to get them recorded saying. But they said, we will absolutely buy it back at any time you don't like it. They brought in supervisor, we'll buy it back. And then my sister slaps me like this. Well, there you go. Just buy it and get out of here. They'll buy it back for you. What have we got to lose? I was not buying property in my mind. I was buying points because I didn't need to own property. I don't want anything with HOAs because I didn't know what my financial situation was. I had not had an earned income in 3 years since COVID and my husband died. So my other income was gone. So for them to have gone through and approved me, they lied on my approval papers. And when I looked at the signature, it was not my signature, or it was not my sober signature. So, and someone else who looked at it goes, that's not your signature. I've seen your signature a million times. So
well, and you did follow the process as Robert is doing. Robert, you mentioned the Federal Trade Commission.
Yes.
And if you could also file with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, but as a student of finance, the CFPB is the federal agency that got money back for the Wells Fargo victims. And yet you cannot file a complaint with the Consumer Protection Bureau, Financial Protection Bureau, because they regulate banks and lendings. And from their drop-down menu, the timeshare developer is not considered a financial institution. But what you can do is tell your story.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, the CFPB works in cooperation with the FTC. So and what we've learned, Kim, you were with me in Delaware when we heard Howard Prosnick's argue the oral arguments in Kirchner versus Wyndham. I also attended oral arguments in Jacksonville, Florida, when Holiday Inn was sued and Experian, saying that they were not investigating disputes. And the courts ruled in favor of Holiday Inn that they do not have to investigate disputes because it's a matter of law, not fact. So if it's a car accident and I say it's yellow and you say it's red, then we're fact witnesses. So it's like that. None of this makes any sense. But the CFPB, they sent an attorney to argue on behalf of the consumer. And they did in the Holden, I believe, versus Holiday Inn. And they also did in the Lewis versus Blue Green. And I think since we do have two military families on here, and Kim, I don't know if you have military in your family. Yes, you do. Your sister, who's a credit repair expert, and I want her to introduce her to Michelle one of these days. But getting back to
my dad, yeah, there have been military. One of my adopted boys, lots of military in my family. One of the things that bothers me is how there is nothing protecting any of the military families for making these, I'm not even going to call them mistakes because these were deceptive acts, and that's a difference to me. And deceptive acts, I think, need to be held accountable for. But the other problem I have, and Robert, maybe you can do some investigative work on this, is with me, is that the lending laws are not the same for timeshares that they are for real property. So how are you able to pressure people that this is real property and put them into foreclosure? Well, I have learned from someone that there are ways around it. And, and I'm investigating that as well, because sometimes I just don't know how true some of these things are. But my sister had mentioned it, as well as a friend of mine who owns a relief company, a credit relief company. And he said to force their hand in I'll have to go look it back up, but that it doesn't really exist anyway, that it's not really a deed. So you have to devalue the deed that they claim that they have against you. And it's all very, but what's not right is that none of it is treated the same in the lending laws we have. None of it.
Well, and now when people are in default, especially the military, they can take the ruling from the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals in Atlanta that ruled that a timeshare is an installment loan, not a mortgage. And according to your sister, Kim, that makes a big difference on your credit report if you default on an installment loan as opposed to a home mortgage. But then someone else reported that their credit score did drop like 150, 200 points, even if it was an installment loan. Have you found that, Michelle?
Yeah, the issue I have with it is the security clearances. I mean, just recently, it was all over the news talking about how there was a shortage of people who are enlisting in the military and that they were having to lower the requirements to get in, as far as testing and stuff. So, if you've got 5,000 timeshare owners in default that are military, that's going to seriously weaken our armed forces because we're going to lose members and there's not enough of them coming in. So now it's a matter of national security.
Well, and then I sent you both a report that a volunteer that worked in the Pentagon of 24 agents with criminal histories. And there were I think 10 that worked in Virginia where we have a big military presence.
Yeah.
One Marine in Virginia lost his air unit command because of a default. And they had someone on that report. He spent 18 months in a federal facility. He was here as an agent for the Syrian government to silence, intimidate, and harm those protesting the Syrian regime. Perfect for timeshare. And then in Florida, there was a quality assurance agent that had at Mystic Dunes that spent 4 years in jail for burglarizing 7 homes, some while occupied. And I'm told, we can report that as long as we report the adjudication of that. And so it's really important to do a public records criminal. It's not always as accurate as when law enforcement, but if you just in your research, Robert, have you looked up any criminal histories on any, and you, Michelle, have you found any criminal histories in the industry?
Well, you and I have that list. I mean, we've got the list of people, and a lot of those in Virginia I worked with. And so there's a whole list that Irene has of people in timeshare that for mainly Hilton, I believe, at the time Diamond, that had criminal histories. I mean, I've seen murder, manslaughter. I've seen all kinds of backgrounds get overridden just so that they can get hired. These are the people that are handling your financial information. That's scary. That's scary.
I have a Florida real estate license. Robert, are you real estate licensed?
No.
Okay. So, and when I read of all the protections and you also mentioned FINRA, that's for financial professionals. In Florida, one thing we have never done that everybody should do, and I didn't know this until last October when I got my Florida real estate license, was that we should be filing with FREC, the Florida Real Estate Commission, because that is against the particular agent. So with this recording we have of this idiot selling for, well, she's probably making, somebody told me that the agent that got fired from Blue Green is with another company and she made $90,000 in a month, that we should take that and take that to the Nevada Real Estate Division and file a complaint against that particular agent. So that's what, and because they said even if you pull your complaint, they still have to investigate. So Robert, where is your next step from here? Can you share with us the purchase price of that trial program?
Yes, it was roughly $3,000 for 300,000 points. So that was so I was calculating it at that rate when I was kind of doing the price line comparison. I forgot what it was for Hilton, But I have not done my mandatory sales pitch with Hilton after purchasing the introductory package. So I would like to be getting with Mrs. Holmes prior to then, so we can maybe take a look at some of their practices.
Have you been contacted to attend an orientation?
Yeah, usually you're supposed to do it during your first vacation. I just haven't booked one with them yet because there is a lot going on between hurricanes and school and engineering licenses and financial licenses. So I haven't done that yet, but I think that's going to be coming up here shortly. And I'm very interested in dissecting their sales methodology.
And what sales center did you buy the Hilton product at?
It was in Orlando. I forgot. I know I was
Tuscany, Park Soleil or Tuscany.
I was staying at one, and the sales presentation was at another. But I was at Park Soleil on Christmas, and it was bad. My room smelled like cigarettes. There wasn't a kitchenette in it like they said there would be. It was kind of dirty. I took a picture and showed it to my sales rep. I was like, my feet are black from walking on the floor. That's disgusting.
The good units in timeshare go to the platinum owners and the diamond owners. When you're coming in on a sampler or an introductory package or a marketing, you're getting the crappy of the crap. They want you to buy the nicer stuff.
Yeah, but they don't encourage you to buy when you're looking at crap. I'm going to tell. They did the same, and I even told them, I said, the room that we dropped our luggage in before we ran back down here is not nice. And you're sitting there telling me that if I'm a member, you would think that, oh, we're so sorry, but we were booked up and we didn't have enough rooms and and but we'll show you the rooms that you would have gotten if we weren't booked up. And they did. They walked us into these suites. And anytime, if you're a member with us, anytime you'll get this suite. And I mean, it was super plush, nice, 2 robes. I think it had 2 showers.
And that's what he said. And I was like, I have a 1-year-old. We're not staying in a room that smells like smoke. It ain't going to happen. There's you can polish a turd all you want, bro. But like, I paid for the week because I still paid. I didn't get a free one. I'm like, I checked out after the first night and we paid for the week.
My husband and I, many, many years ago, when we were really young, went on a sale, and they drug us out to the middle of nowhere where we couldn't get away to, go for the day. So we were stuck for 10 hours on this bus thing. It wasn't even a tour of anything. They drove us out somewhere, talked to us, and then drove us back. And it was 10 hours of driving on our very short, limited vacation that I bought this deal on. And my husband said, pack your bags, we're leaving. We will never do this again. And we did. And we coughed up the money out of our own pocket to go somewhere nicer. And we did. We stayed somewhere nicer. And, we were young and it was hard on us, but we also swore never, ever again. And if I had known the little package deal that I bought, again, my brain was not right. My sister and I always go somewhere every year, and that's where we wanted to go was Chicago for St. Patrick's Day. If I had known that the deal that I bought was a timeshare pitch involved, I would have never bought it. I would have just paid regular prices for a hotel room.
We only have a minute left, but I do, for full disclosure, I have to say that we stayed at Falls Creek in Branson, and it could not have been nicer. It was a Hilton. It was a former Diamond property that's now Hilton. We had a beautiful unit. It was good value only because I booked 3 nights. If I had booked over the weekend, then it would have been cheaper to book online. But I will say that it was really, really nice. So, Robert and Michelle, do you have any closing statements?
Yeah, be careful about booking online, because now if you're not a timeshare owner, example, you want to go to Virginia Beach, in the fine print, there are now resort fees, like $94 a night resort fees.
Yeah.
So be careful about what you might see online, because
I always add in the taxes, and I add in the resort fees.
They're not charged until check-in.
I have a question for Robert. Maybe he can stick around a minute afterwards. Everyone, thank you very much for watching us on Timeshare Solution or surrender. I just want to say we are about finding the solutions, and many times we find good solutions, and not every timeshare has been about experience. What we're tackling are the deceptive acts that have been made by the people or the timeshares themselves, and we are trying to change the laws. So send us your recordings, send us your story. We look forward to hearing from everyone. Have a safe weekend, and we will see you soon.